Hello everyone, welcome to video 3 of 5 about the Decentralization Grant Program. My name is Lilia Perez, I'm the Grants and Programs Manager for Arts Mid-Hudson. This is going to be a shorter video where we go in depth and look at the budget form for the Community Arts Grant. I'm actually going to go on our website right now, show you where to find the budget form, and then open it up in Excel on my computer and show you how to fill it out. Okay, so we're on our website, artsmidhudson.org. You can find all the stuff related to the decentralization grants right here by clicking on this button. And then down here under how to submit a grant proposal, this is where you're going to find all of the submission forms for the Community Arts Grant, as well as downloads to download the budget. When you click on this button, it will download an Excel file to your computer, which will likely appear in your downloads folder. If you have Excel, you can go ahead and open it there, and if not, you can open it in Numbers if you're on a Mac, or you can import it into Google Sheets, and I'll show you how to do that real quick at the end. All right, so now I'm here in Excel, and this is often what it looks like when people download it. You might get this yellow bar that says it's a protected view. Just click Enable Editing. The first thing you're going to do is enter in the legal applicant's name and the project title here. This budget form is broken into 4 sections: project revenue, project expenses, a summary section, and a section for additional notes. First, looking at the project revenue section. This will be all revenue associated with the project. Any additional income that is coming in, you will show it here. Broken it into 2 sections, earned income and contributed income. So earned income are things like admissions, membership dues, workshop fees, concessions, any income that you're generating because of a service that you're performing or because of the event or programming itself. Contributed income are things like donations, sponsorships, other grants. One thing you do not want to put in this section is the grant amount that you are requesting from us. That will skew all of the formulas that are built into this form for you. One thing that's really important about this form in general is that throughout, you're going to need to use the explanation column. It's really important to peer panels that they know where the funds are going. It's really the most important part of your grant proposal. Okay, so I'm going to start filling this in now. I'm going to fill it in as if I was applying from Arts Mid-Hudson, even though obviously we cannot apply to this grant. And let's say that this project is going to be a series of 3 concerts. So I'm going to call it 3 concerts in the park. So let's say that I'm charging $5 a person and we're going to have 3 concerts. And for each concert, we're anticipating that 50 people are going to show up. So for the explanation column, I'm going to start by writing 50 tickets at $5 each times 3 concerts. That would be $750. So that's the total amount that we would enter in here, and you see that already got factored into the total under projected revenue. What will be really important for your budget is that you make sure that any numbers you enter in here match any numbers that you are writing on your written grant proposal that you're submitting on Submittable. For anything that you enter into contribute income, I recommend noting whether or not that income is projected or actual. If we had some individual donations, and let's say at these concerts, it's a $5 ticket price, but we're also going to have a donation bucket. And so you're anticipating that at each of those events, you're going to make about $100 in donations. So you might write this in the explanation column. So that way you're just letting the panel know that you are anticipating that you'll get this money, but you don't have it yet. I really recommend just being straightforward about whether funding is projected or actual, because then the panel isn't going to waste time guessing. So that's $300. And then let's say that you already got a $1,000 grant from the Community Foundation. A big change for the budget form this year is that we no longer include a section to write if you have in-kind donations. Because there is no grant match anymore, we really don't need to know that level of detail. You can always note within your application if you're getting some really good community support through donations. And I'm also going to add in here, let's say we were kicking in $450, and I would write that that is our contribution. And so now we're showing that we have $2,500 in outside revenue. Of course, there is no cash match here, so if this area is completely blank, that is also okay. You do not have to fill in anything here if you don't have any additional cash revenue for the project. So now let's go down and take a look at project expenses. You'll see that it's laid out in a very similar way. We're going to enter in all of our expenses and the amounts of each of those expenses and use the explanation column. But there's an additional column here, our grant request column. So this is where you're going to show us which expenses you're asking the grant to cover. And this is really the most critical section of the budget, because this is where you're literally showing us where grant funds will go and what you're asking us to pay for. Let's say to start that for this series of concerts, we hired somebody to organize it and curate it. So we're going to write here fee to, let's give them a generic name, Jane Doe. And that individual, they're going to be getting $750. So we have 3 groups performing at 3 different concerts. A couple options here. So if they're all getting paid the same amount, you could write something like, and then here you would write $1,500. Another option is, say one group is getting a certain amount, another is not. I'll call them group 1, 2, and 3, but it might be helpful here to actually write the group name so that they know what you're referring to. So if they're getting paid different amounts, you might write, so that works out to be about the same amount, but that's a way to show that they would be getting different amounts. Maybe group 3 has a lot more people in it and that's justified for them to get a higher rate. It's helpful to be really clear about this, because otherwise the panel is going to wonder about these kinds of things. If all the artists are getting paid the same amount, if some are getting paid more than others, this just helps, again, avoid distractions, as I said in video number 2. So next, let's say that we have a sound guy who's going to come in. He's going to bring in his own PA system. And let's say that's going to be $300 a night. So here we'll write $900. I'm going to leave these 2 next ones blank. So let's say there's no space rental fee and the equipment rental fees are actually rolled in with this technical fee. Now under consumable art supplies and materials, let's say that we need to buy some additional PPE, for example. I wanted to put this one in here just to remind you that you can ask for this. This is now an expense that is a part of doing public programming. Marketing expenses, this is another place where you might want to be a little bit more specific. So let's say we're going to take out a WAMC ad. Let's say we're going to do Facebook advertising for 5 weeks. And then we're going to do, let's say, 2 print ads in some local papers, and they're $50 each. And so that would be a very clear way to lay out how you're getting to this full number. Let's say the full number then, that's $500. After I clicked out of typing within this field, you'll see that now the top part of it is totally cut off. What's really important is that you make sure that when you're viewing your budget like this without expanding any columns, that you can see everything that you want us to read. If you can't see it, we will not be able to read it, because when you export this, it will be a PDF. So this would be a great situation where we want to keep this whole explanation, but it's not going to fit here. So I'm just going to go here and select that text. I'm going to copy it and bring it down to the budget notes section and paste it in. And so now we have this, and instead of this saying this cutoff text right here, I'm going to write C budget notes, and I'll put an asterisk so that we know that this is the first note, and I'm going to put an asterisk right here. And so now when the panel is reading, they will know to, when they get to this one, if they want to read more information, just scroll down to the budget notes and the whole thing is here. If you run out of room in this section down here as well, you are welcome to just create an extra budget attachment. It's totally up to you. Most people can fit everything here in the budget notes section. So let's finish up here. Let's say that we also have some flyers and signage, and that's going to be $100. And then we're also giving each group a travel stipend of $50. So now we've entered in all of our expenses and all of our projected income. And down here at the budget summary section, you can see the total expenses are $4,050. The total revenue is $2,500, and it's saying that our grant request is $1,550. And the reason it's giving you that number is because that is the gap that exists between expenses and revenue. This is a formula that we use all the time. Expenses minus revenue equals grant request amount. So that formula is already built in here to this form. In order to make up all of your expenses, you need a grant of $1,550. I'm going to show you how to enter that bit of information in. So if we want it to be very straightforward, let's say that you're going to ask us just to pay for the artist fees. So let's put $1,500 there under grant request column. And then we still have another $50 that we need to ask for. So let's ask for $50 to go towards the fee to Jane. As soon as this number and this number match, it says yes, because the budget now balances. We've shown all the revenue, all the expenses, and we've identified what the gap is between our expenses and our revenue, and we're asking for that much from this grant. We also have this other tool down here, percent of grant request. This shows you what percentage you are asking us to pay for out of the total expenses. Okay, so I've zoomed out, I'm done with my budget, and I'm going to show you how to export it to a PDF. So I'm going to first click on File, Export, Create PDF. I'm going to label my file very clearly, so now I'm going to hit Publish. And the first thing you want to do after it exports is make sure that everything that you wrote on this budget is visible to us as well. So first of all, good, it's all appearing on one page, it's not cutting anything off. I'm going to zoom in now and just pan over it and make sure that everything is visible and readable. Looks good to me, everything is written there. Nothing cut off. The one that we knew was going to cut off, we used the budget notes section down here, which is also visible, and so this looks good. Now I'm going to show you how to do this in Google Sheets. If you have a Gmail account, you'll be able to use Google Sheets for free. In order to get here, maybe you're looking at it from your Gmail. You're going to click on these dots, Google Apps. That'll show all of the apps that you have, including Sheets, so you can go ahead and click there. You can also just type into Google Sheets, and it'll bring you right there if you're having trouble finding it. So now that I'm in, I'm going to start a new spreadsheet, click on blank, and I'm going to use this to import the downloaded budget file that I got from the Arts Mid-Hudson website. So we go over here to File, Import, and I'm going to go over to Upload. And so after I click on Select a File from your device, it opened up this window. It was in my Downloads folder, so I'm just going to click on that and open it. And you can let it go ahead and replace the existing spreadsheet. And once it is, you'll see that, the same thing we just worked on in Excel got automatically inputted here. You can go ahead and use it the same way. All of the stuff that I pointed out for Excel applies here as well. All right, so let's export this to PDF. We're going to go ahead and click on File, Download, PDF document. And so it shows here we're having a little problem where it's extended to a second page. So a quick fix for that is just to change the percentage a little bit, especially because it's such a small fix. So I'm going to try 95. And there it goes, it's all on the page now. So that's a little tool that you can use in Google Sheets. I'm going to go ahead and click Export. So now that we filled out a budget form together and looked at it in Excel and Google Sheets, I'm going to provide some final tips before I let you go. First of all, I strongly recommend working on the narrative and the budget together and making sure, as I noted when we were looking at it in Excel, to check for consistency. It's really important that numbers match from the narrative to the budget. So at least work on the budget and the narrative together. Definitely do not leave the budget for last. And if possible, I actually recommend working on the budget first. When you do the budget first, you kind of have a map for the rest of the project. You've mapped out what are your existing resources, what are your expenses going to be, and what are you going to ask us to fund. And then that's the focus of your writing within the grant proposal. Use the explanation column as I noted a couple times, and I showed you how to fill all of that in. Check the guidelines for allowable and non-fundable expenses. Allowable expenses are those that we most want to fund, and non-fundable expenses are things that we definitely cannot fund. Now that I'm here talking about this, I realize that I want to show you one more thing on the budget form. So one thing we definitely cannot fund is food. So let's say that they're going to offer a little bit of free food at each event. That total expense is $300. And so obviously this now changes the grant request amount. You would see that now your grant request has jumped up to $1,850 and you would want to allocate $300 somewhere else, but we don't want to allocate it to food because we cannot fund the food. So what we're going to do is just leave this cell blank. That's showing the review panel that you are not asking us to fund these expenses. And now that we've added $300 in expenses, we would also have to add $300 somewhere as well. So let's say that we're just going to ask for more for Jane, and we're going to bring this number up to $350. The grant request is higher now, but what's most important is that these two numbers match. What I just did is what happens to applicants a lot. You're working on something and then suddenly you realize you forgot an expense or you forgot to include something. And this is a great example of a moment where now my grant request amount has changed on my budget. So I want to make sure on the grant proposal form that I have changed it in that question as well, and that anywhere else I reference this number has been changed to match the new number. And now some last tips here. We went over, if you don't have Excel, feel free to use Google Sheets. And of course, ask us to review a draft of your budget. I strongly recommend this. I can look at a draft of a budget pretty quickly and recognize if there are any non-fundable expenses on it or if it doesn't balance. So thanks for joining me for this video to go over the budget form for the Community Arts Grant. I'm Lilia Perez, Grants and Programs Manager at Arts Mid-Hudson. Good luck writing your grant proposal and working on your budget, and I hope to speak with you soon.